a pretty little cottage in this quiet rural area of Dunganston in the county of Wexford. And it was from here, in the 1800s, that a gentleman by the name of Kennedy set off on the emigrant trail and eventually settled in America, as they say. And it was about a century or so later that his great-great-grandson, one John F. Kennedy, returned here as President of the United States to visit the ancestral home, to explore his roots to some extent. And it's remarkable to me, at any rate, that that visit was all of 25 years ago, a quarter of a century ago. But the excitement of the great day is still remembered.
Next day at New Ross, County Wexford. From here, Patrick Kennedy sailed for Boston 120 years ago. Mr. Andy Minahan, chairman of the Urban Council, now welcomes his descendant, but not without a little technical difficulty.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me? Some pressman has walked on this. Come on, Mr. Ward. We're in right trouble now. We must keep to a tight schedule. So unfortunately, as I've seen, the communications have broken down, but I've heard them speak before, and I'm sure he can be heard by each and every one of you. And now, people of New Ross and people of Ireland, I give you President Kennedy of the United States. Mr. Mayor, I first of all would like to introduce two members of my family who came here with us. My sister Eunice Shriver and to introduce another of my sisters, Jean Smith. And I'd like to have you meet the American ambassador, McCluskey, who's with us, right over there. And I'd like to have you meet the head of the American labor movement, whose mother and father were born in Ireland, George Meany, who's traveling with us. And then I'd like to have you meet the only man with us who doesn't have a drop of Irish blood, but who's dying to. The head of the protocol in the United States, Angia Biddle Duke. See you, Angie, how nice it is to be Irish. I'm glad to be here. It took 115 years to make this trip. And 6,000 miles. And 3 generations. But I'm proud to be here, and I appreciate the warm welcome you've given to all of us. When my great-grandfather left here to become a cooper in East Boston, he carried nothing with him except 2 things: a strong religious faith and a strong desire for liberty. And I'm glad to say, that all of his great-grandchildren have valued that inheritance. If he hadn't left, I'd be working over at the Albatross Company. Or perhaps for John D. Kelly. In any case, we're happy to be back here. About 50 years ago, an Irishman from New Ross traveled down to Washington with his family, and in order to tell his neighbors how well he was doing. He had his picture taken in front of the White House and said, this is our summer home. Come and see us. Well, it's our home also in the winter, and I hope you will come and see us. Thank you.
Patrick Kennedy's home was 3 miles away at Duncanstown, a small farm now owned by Mrs. Eireann, the cousin of the president. And here have gathered many Kennedys whose blood has been made proud by their most famous son. Here, too, we were to see again what had been proved before. All the formality that must attend his high office was mingled with the simplicity of a man who knew he was with friends, and he gave them back his friendship and his trust. The local farmers stood back politely, kindly. They were there to see, not to be seen. Surprised to be beckoned forward, indeed, the president had to beckon them twice. And not till it was clear that they were welcome did they come forward, eagerly, delightedly, yet with the respect born of self-respect. And the might of presidency lost nothing by the informality, but was graced by it. In the farmyard, he is greeted by his cousin, Mrs. Ryan, and her daughters, Eireann and Josie, by Jim Kennedy, Kitty Kennedy, and young Patrick, a family party that remained a family occasion, although all the world could see it and join in it. The president is invited into the house. A relation is taken into the home, and the two things are the same thing. Tea is prepared, no doubt the largest tea party that Duncanstown has ever seen. But the cakes and sandwiches, the soda bread and biscuits were made in the home, but with rather special care. Always the man is treated with the courtesy accorded to a president and the friendship due to the man. The local children formed a guard of honor between the house and the landing field, waiting impatiently, with minds a little confused, perhaps, by the strange sight of Mrs. Ryan's cousin, who visited her and brought a helicopter, who was the President of the United States and Mrs. Ryan's cousin. Eireann Ryan did the honors with the silver teapot. The local curate, Father Myrna, met the president. It was a reception and a tea party. Here, it seemed, it was the visitor who was at ease, inviting and welcoming all contact with his fellow guests. Nothing was too trivial to be interesting. No one was unwelcome to his attention and his time. There was no effort of concentration. There was energy and talent to spare.
Hello. Is there a mic there?
Yes, yes.
Cut yourself.
Yeah. Give me a piece of it now.
What?
Give me a piece of it now.
Oh, okay, here. Thanks.
Don't let him come up here, don't you?
Yeah, they're all shy. They're all shy.
Oh, really? Go down
We're
again.
all. We want to express our thanks to Mrs. Ryan, who she and her friends who cooked all this. I hope everybody who came with us from the country, the United States, all the press and everything will take something, because this was a great effort on their part. We promise we'll come only once every 10 years. And as I said inside, we want to drink a cup of tea to all the Kennedys who went and all the Kennedys who stayed. Bye, Mr. Ryan. You've been terrific. Oh, we're not going yet. No, Mr. Aiken says we're late.
Don't mind him.
No courtesy was ignored, no kindness overlooked. Justice must be done to the splendid tea that was set out, and the newsmen, too, on a long and exhausting tour, must eat. In the midst of a family reunion, and in the eyes of all Ireland, there was still time to remember things that no one would have noticed if he had forgotten.
Yeah, I will, you bet. I want to get one with you, guys.
Slipping a bit.
And then, before he left, a picture of the Kennedys together. Mrs. Ryan and her daughter Josie with Mrs. Jean Smith. On the president's left, Eireann Ryan, and Mrs. Whitty in her black hat and coat on the right. A picture for a family album. A picture of the historic occasion. President Kennedy was always late leaving, but seldom late arriving, always seeming more eager to meet the next event than to leave the last one. Mr. Aiken, the Minister for External Affairs, had to remind the President that he was due in Wexford, but there was time to part gracefully and without haste. The long wait was over. President Kennedy was coming. Will he stop? Will he say something? Will he even perhaps shake hands? The man who has pleased a nation won't disappoint a score of children. And so a memory was created which will become a legend that will live as long as these young people live. The helicopter waits, and so from the fields which Patrick Kennedy left by the high road and the sea, John Fitzgerald Kennedy steps off into the air. Cuan Loch Gorman. Already, the people of Ireland had offered President Kennedy the freedom of Ireland, and this was to be expressed with form and ceremony by 5 of her cities. The first of these was Wexford, the capital of his ancestral county. Here, the very sea which linked him with his home was made gay in his honor. A great crowd gathered to hear the Lord Mayor, Councillor Thomas Byrne, confer on the President the freedom of the borough.
As a token of our esteem for a great Wexford man from your own people. Thanks.
I will now call on the Secretary of the County Council to read the address of welcome to President John F. Kennedy.
Mr. Seamus Gallagher, Secretary of Wexford County Council.
A Wosterain Ra Wostel. Faran Boil Corle Conde Loch Garman. Kate Mille Faltia Roth, Harchanan Fobel. Ockage Ra Chalewal Shaw. The Elche Gudi and Conde a Hillary Schlucht Darflania. Kota doing Horrow a Hirshin. 2 Behalahar and Shahanu. Kate Blin Nistiane. August 2 at 3 Hirana Wolf Public and Yiraj.
I will now ask President John Fitzgerald Kennedy to pronounce his address.
Chairman of the Council, Mr. Minister, my friends, I want to express my pleasure at being back from whence I came. There is an impression in Washington that there are no Kennedys left in Ireland, that they're all in Washington, and so I wonder if there are any Kennedys in this audience. Could you hold up your hand so I can see? I'm glad to see a few cousins who didn't catch the boat. We're glad to... Seems to me that in these dangerous days, when the struggle for freedom is worldwide, against an armed doctrine, that Ireland in its experience has one special significance. And that is that the people's fight, which John Boyle O'Reilly said outlived 1,000 years, that it was possible for a people over hundreds of years of foreign domination and religious persecution, it was possible for that people to maintain their national identity and their strong faith. And therefore, those who may feel that in these difficult times, who may believe that freedom may be on the run, or that some nations may be permanently subjugated and eventually wiped out, would do well to remember Ireland. And I'm proud to come here for another reason, because it makes me even prouder of my own country. My country welcomed so many sons and daughters of so many countries, Irish and Scandinavian and Germans, Italian and all the rest, and gave them a fair chance and a fair opportunity. Speaker of the House of Representatives is Irish descent. Leader of the Senate is of Irish descent. And what is true of the Irish has been true of dozens of other people. In Ireland, I think you see something of what is so great about the United States. And I must say that in the United States, through millions of your sons and daughters and cousins, 25 million, in fact, you see something of what is great about Ireland. So I'm proud to be here. I'm proud to have connected on that beautiful golden box the coat of arms of Wexford, the coat of arms of the kingly and beautiful Kennedys, and also and the coat of arms of the United States. That's a very good combination. Thank you.